The last couple of weeks weren't good for Pope Francis, as he faced an unimaginable and heartbreaking tragedy. Behind the public figure, the beloved pontiff, there's a side to his life that many don't see: his personal grief. What's left behind is a tale of strength, vulnerability, and the pain that comes with leadership. In this video, we'll uncover the emotional weight Pope Francis is carrying and the tragedy that has shaken him to his core. The last couple of weeks weren't good for Pope Francis, as he's faced a deeply personal and heartbreaking tragedy that has shaken him to his core. Known for his resilience, warmth, and unwavering faith, Pope Francis has long been a figure admired for his ability to stay composed amidst the chaos of world affairs, guiding the Catholic Church through turbulent times with strength and compassion. His efforts to spread love, tolerance, and peace have made him a beloved leader, not just within the Catholic community, but across the globe. His actions have always reflected a commitment to the values he preaches: humility, empathy, and service. Whether it's his tireless work on behalf of the poor, the sick, or the oppressed, Pope Francis has always strived to be an example of the selflessness and compassion at the heart of the Christian faith. But behind this public image, there is a man who, like anyone else, experiences the deepest sorrows and emotional pain. Though Pope Francis has become synonymous with hope and inspiration for millions, in the past few weeks, he has faced an unimaginable grief that has touched him on a profoundly personal level. It's a grief that has not only affected him privately, but has now become something that has been seen and felt by the world, drawing attention to a side of the Pope that many never thought they would witness, one of vulnerability, loss, and sorrow. The Pope's strength and poise, which have been evident throughout his papacy, have been tested in ways that have never before been made public. While he has always been known for his calm demeanor and his ability to bring comfort to others in times of trouble, the tragedy that has recently struck him has left him struggling with emotions that no amount of faith, training, or dedication to his calling could shield him from. In these difficult times, Pope Francis has had to grapple with a reality that has rocked his world: that no one, regardless of their position or stature, is immune to the pain that comes from losing someone close or facing a deeply personal loss. As the leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis has always been a source of solace for those in need, a man who offers strength to others while keeping his own struggles behind closed doors. However, this recent tragedy has brought those doors open, and for the first time, the world has been given a glimpse into the emotional turmoil Pope Francis is experiencing. The Pope's loss is not just a personal matter, but a profound moment that has had far-reaching effects on the global community. It's a reminder that even the most revered figures, those who seem to possess unshakable resolve, are ultimately human, with all the fragility that comes with it. This event has highlighted that no matter how much one may try to maintain a sense of control or dignity, the weight of grief can bring even the strongest person to their knees. The last few weeks have seen Pope Francis navigate through this incredibly difficult period, attempting to fulfill his duties as the head of the Catholic Church, while coping with a sorrow that he too must now bear. The tragedy that has unfolded in his life has added an unspoken layer to his papacy, affecting not only his personal journey, but also his mission to serve as a beacon of light for millions. Despite his extraordinary work and accomplishments, Pope Francis, like anyone else, must now reckon with the universal human experience of loss and the deep pain that accompanies it. This heart-wrenching event has not only reshaped the Pope's personal life, but has also made him reflect on his own spirituality, calling into question the role of faith and grace in helping someone navigate the depths of sorrow. The grief he is experiencing has illuminated a part of his character that few people have seen, a man deeply affected by personal pain, yet one who continues to rise above it in search of strength and meaning. Pope Francis has never shied away from discussing the challenges of life, and this current tragedy is no different. Though he has always expressed a strong belief in the power of God's love and healing, this event has put his faith to the test in ways that have been impossible to ignore. The Pope's ability to continue with his papal duties while dealing with such personal pain has inspired many, yet it has also served as a reminder of the incredible toll that personal grief can take on an individual. As this tragedy has unfolded, the world has watched with empathy and understanding, seeing Pope Francis not just as the pontiff, but as a man who, in this moment, stands in the same place as so many others who face unimaginable loss. In this video, we'll take a closer look at the heartbreaking events that have led Pope Francis to this point, shedding light on the profound impact this tragedy has had on his life. From the initial moments of the tragedy to how it has shaped his thoughts and actions in the days since, we will explore how Pope Francis is navigating this difficult time and how it has affected not only him, but the people who love and follow him. This event has not only altered the course of his recent life, but will likely have a lasting impact on how he approaches his papacy moving forward. For those who have admired Pope Francis for his strength and character, this tragedy has shown that even the strongest among us can falter. That pain is something all people must endure, regardless of their status or position. Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, is a man whose life has been defined by humility, compassion, and a deep commitment to serving others. Long before he became the head of the Catholic Church, he lived a life shaped by modesty and faith, and it's these very qualities that have endeared him to millions around the world. Raised in a working-class family, Pope Francis's early life was marked by simplicity and an understanding of the struggles that everyday people face. He was born to Italian immigrants in 1936, and from a young age, he was exposed to the challenges of living in a bustling, diverse, and often difficult environment. His father worked as a railway worker, while his mother kept the household together, providing the emotional backbone of the family. These early experiences instilled in Bergoglio a sense of solidarity with the poor and marginalized, a value that would guide him throughout his life and eventually shape his papacy. His deep connection to his roots is often reflected in the way he approaches his work as the Pope. He has consistently demonstrated an unwavering commitment to social justice, emphasizing the need for the Church to be a voice for the voiceless and a defender of the poor. This dedication to social causes became apparent early on in his religious life, and as a Jesuit priest, he served in various roles, including teaching, counseling, and overseeing the spiritual well-being of his community. His time as a provincial superior for the Society of Jesus in Argentina was marked by his pragmatic approach to leadership. He was known for being approachable and deeply invested in the lives of the people he served, seeking to help them through the challenges they faced, whether they were related to poverty, education, or personal struggles. Even before becoming Pope, Bergoglio was respected for his wisdom, simplicity, and profound spirituality. His ascension to the papacy in 2013, following the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, was an event that surprised many. As the first pope from Latin America and the first Jesuit pope in history, his election was a symbol of change and a message that the Church was looking toward a more inclusive future, one that reached beyond the traditional power structures of Europe. Despite the immense power and responsibility that came with the papacy, Pope Francis remained true to his humble roots. He opted to live in a simple guest house instead of the opulent papal apartment, a decision that sent a clear message about his values and priorities. He rejected the traditional papal lifestyle in favor of a more austere and accessible approach, wanting to set an example for Catholics around the world that true leadership lies in service, not in luxury. His actions, like his emphasis on personal humility and his focus on reaching out to those who are often overlooked by society, reflect the principles he has lived by throughout his life. Pope Francis is also deeply committed to the intellectual and spiritual formation of others. As a young man, he studied chemistry before entering the seminary, and his diverse education helped shape his worldview. He is known for his intellectual rigor and his ability to engage with a variety of issues, from theology to social justice to the environment. His papacy has seen him tackle some of the most pressing issues of our time, such as climate change, economic inequality, and interfaith dialogue. One of his most significant contributions has been his emphasis on mercy and forgiveness. Throughout his tenure as Pope, he has consistently emphasized that the Church should be a refuge for the wounded, a place of healing and compassion. His focus on mercy is not just a theological stance, but a lived reality that he embodies in his actions. Whether it's his outreach to refugees, his advocacy for the marginalized, or his efforts to foster peace in places of conflict, Pope Francis has shown that his leadership is grounded in a profound sense of empathy and a deep understanding of the human condition. His personal style as a pope is often described as being less formal and more accessible. He has shown time and again that he is not above the people he serves. His interactions with others are marked by a genuine interest in their lives and a desire to make their burdens lighter. From his casual conversations with everyday people to his visits to hospitals and homeless shelters, Pope Francis has worked to bridge the gap between the papacy and the common person. He has also been a vocal advocate for those who are oppressed, speaking out on behalf of refugees, the poor, and those suffering from violence and discrimination. Pope Francis has not been afraid to challenge the established norms and call for reform within the Church. His openness to reform has been met with both praise and criticism, as he has sought to modernize the Church's approach to issues like divorce, sexuality, and the role of women. While he remains deeply committed to Catholic doctrine, he has also pushed for a more inclusive church, one that welcomes people from all walks of life. This willingness to engage with difficult questions and push the boundaries of traditional thinking has made him a figure of hope for many, though it has also sparked controversy among some who prefer the status quo. At the same time, Pope Francis has always remained deeply rooted in his spiritual life. His religious practices are central to his daily routine, and he is often seen praying and reflecting in solitude. Despite the demands of his papal duties, he has made it a point to nurture his own relationship with God, recognizing that without this connection, his ability to lead and serve others would be compromised. He is a deeply prayerful man, and his spirituality infuses everything he does, from his sermons to his daily interactions. The man behind the papacy is not just the Pope, the leader of the Catholic Church, or a political figure on the world stage. He is a man of deep faith, a man shaped by his experiences, his upbringing, and his commitment to living out the gospel message of love, compassion, and justice. His journey has been one of service, and through his actions, he has sought to make the world a better place for all people, regardless of their background or circumstances. In the face of adversity, whether in his personal life or his public ministry, Pope Francis has consistently demonstrated that his greatest strength lies not in his power or influence, but in his ability to show mercy, to listen, and to serve. It is this deep well of love and compassion that has defined his life, and it is this same spirit that will carry him through the heartbreak he now faces. Behind the papacy lies a man who is profoundly human, a man who, like all of us, is shaped by the experiences, challenges, and triumphs that make up a life well lived. The last few weeks have marked a tragic chapter in the life of Pope Francis, as he faced an event that not only shook him personally, but also left a profound impact on the Church and the millions of followers who look to him for guidance and solace. This event, deeply personal and heart-wrenching, took place within the walls of the Vatican, a place usually associated with peace, faith, and the sacredness of religious life. But for Pope Francis, it became the setting of an unimaginable sorrow. On a fateful day, Pope Francis received the devastating news that his beloved sister, Maria Elena Bergoglio, had passed away after a long battle with illness. Maria Elena, known to Pope Francis as a constant pillar of support throughout his life, was a person he held dear, not only as a sibling but as a confidant, a guide, and a loving companion on his journey through life. Her death was a blow to the Pope that left him grappling with deep sadness and loss, emotions that were difficult for even someone as stoic and composed as Pope Francis to keep at bay. She had been battling health issues for years, but her condition had worsened significantly in the weeks leading up to her death, leaving the Pope to face the unbearable reality of her decline. Despite his rigorous papal duties and his responsibility to serve millions around the world, Pope Francis took time to be with his sister in her final days, a testament to the deep familial bond they shared. For the Pope, this was a time not just of prayer, but of personal reflection, as he realized that the ties that bind a family together are sometimes more profound than any of the duties one may have as a public figure. Maria Elena's death was not just a personal tragedy for Pope Francis. It represented the loss of someone who had been by his side for nearly his entire life. As the youngest of 5 siblings, Pope Francis had always enjoyed a close relationship with his family, and Maria Elena was someone he frequently turned to for advice and support throughout the years. In fact, despite his high office and the responsibilities that came with being the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis had always maintained a close-knit relationship with his family, and Maria Elena played an essential role in keeping him grounded. She was a quiet, yet powerful presence in his life, someone who never sought the spotlight, but whose love and care for her brother were unwavering. Her loss was a stark reminder to Pope Francis that no matter the greatness of his role as Pope, he was still just a man, a brother, and a son who would feel the sting of loss just as any other person would. The death of Maria Elena hit Pope Francis hard, and in the days following her passing, he withdrew from some of his public duties to mourn in private. This break in his public life was unprecedented, as the Pope had always maintained a schedule packed with meetings, public appearances, and ceremonial duties. Yet, in the face of such personal grief, he made the decision to step back and take time to process the loss of his sister, a woman who had been with him through all the highs and lows of his life. For those around him, seeing Pope Francis in such a vulnerable state was a humbling experience, as it revealed a side of the pontiff that few had ever witnessed before. Even in his most vulnerable moments, Pope Francis continued to maintain his deep faith, using his grief as an opportunity to reflect on the transience of life and the importance of cherishing those we love while they are still with us. In a statement made shortly after her passing, Pope Francis spoke of his sister as a source of comfort and inspiration. He described her as a woman who lived her life with quiet strength, offering kindness and care to those around her, a woman who never sought recognition, but who always served with grace. His words were not just a tribute to her life, but also an expression of his personal sorrow, a grief that was now shared with the world. The loss of Maria Elena was also significant in the broader context of Pope Francis's papacy. Her death represented not only the loss of a sibling, but also the loss of a person who had witnessed the Pope's life and journey from the very beginning, someone who understood him in ways that few others could. In many ways, she was a living reminder of the humble origins that Pope Francis had come from, and her passing marked the end of an era in his life, one that was closely tied to his family and his roots. For Pope Francis, Maria Elena's death also brought forth the realization that his family, like all families, would not remain forever intact. This realization of mortality and loss undoubtedly shaped the Pope's outlook in the days and weeks following the tragedy. Pope Francis's grieving process was deeply personal, yet it was also one that resonated with many who watched from afar. His decision to mourn privately while continuing his papal duties demonstrated both his resilience and his humanity. As he carried on with his work, he did so with a quiet strength that reflected his deep faith in God and his belief that the love of family endures beyond death. However, the loss of his sister also marked a turning point for the Pope, one that left him more reflective than ever before about the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing those we hold dear. It was a poignant reminder that, no matter how powerful or influential a person may become, the bonds of love and family are what ultimately matter most. In the aftermath of her death, Pope Francis made a point to reach out to his family members, offering them comfort and expressing his love and gratitude for the time they had spent together. His mourning process was not just an internal one, it was an expression of love for his entire family, as they came together to mourn the loss of Maria Elena and to support one another in their grief. As the world learned of the Pope's loss, many people, both Catholic and non-Catholic, expressed their condolences and sent messages of support to the Pope, recognizing the profound nature of the tragedy he was experiencing. For many, Pope Francis's vulnerability in the face of this loss humanized him even further, reminding the world that even the most powerful leaders are still individuals who experience pain and sorrow just like anyone else. The death of Maria Elena has left an indelible mark on Pope Francis, and though he continues to fulfill his duties as the leader of the Catholic Church, there is no doubt that her loss will stay with him for the rest of his life. The Pope's response to this tragedy has been one of quiet grace, allowing his grief to become a part of his journey while remaining deeply committed to his role as the spiritual leader of millions. While the world may never fully understand the depth of the sorrow Pope Francis has faced, it is clear that this personal tragedy has shaped him in ways that will resonate with him for years to come. In his grief, Pope Francis has reminded the world of the importance of family, love, and the fleeting nature of life, and how even the most powerful among us must confront the painful reality of loss. The last few weeks have been a challenging and emotionally charged time for Pope Francis as he grapples with the heartbreaking loss of his sister, Maria Elena. As he faces this profound personal tragedy, the world has watched with both sympathy and reverence to see how the Pope is coping with such a devastating event. Pope Francis, known for his compassion, humility, and unwavering faith, has approached this time of grief with a sense of quiet resilience, relying on both his spiritual beliefs and the support of his close family and friends to navigate through this period of sorrow. The loss of Maria Elena has not only affected him on a deeply personal level, but has also touched the hearts of millions of Catholics and others around the world who look to him for strength and guidance. Despite the immense weight of his grief, Pope Francis has continued to perform his papal duties, demonstrating a remarkable ability to balance personal sorrow with his responsibilities as the leader of the Catholic Church. His faith has been a source of strength, allowing him to process his feelings and find solace in prayer, reflection, and his relationship with God. In times of personal hardship, Pope Francis has often turned to his deep spiritual life to find meaning, and this tragic moment in his life has been no different. He has found comfort in the belief that death is not the end, but rather a transition into eternal life, a core tenet of the Catholic faith that has helped him endure the loss of his sister. However, while his faith has provided him with peace, the emotional toll of losing a sibling has been impossible to ignore. Pope Francis has openly acknowledged his sadness, giving voice to the grief that many people experience in the wake of losing a loved one. This vulnerability has humanized him, showing that even the Pope, revered and respected by millions, is not immune to the painful realities of life. In the days following Maria Elena's death, Pope Francis took time to step back from his hectic public schedule, allowing himself the space to mourn and reflect on the loss. This decision to step back was an important one, as it gave him the opportunity to process his emotions in private and focus on his family during such a difficult time. Despite his usual commitment to his duties, Pope Francis recognized the importance of taking time for himself and his loved ones in the face of such a personal loss. His time away from the public eye was not a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to the Pope's recognition of the importance of self-care and personal reflection during moments of grief. Even in his private moments of mourning, Pope Francis continued to lean on his family for support. He has always had a close-knit family, and the loss of Maria Elena has brought them even closer together. His siblings, children, and other relatives have offered him comfort and shared in the grief of losing someone they all loved dearly. This family support system has been crucial for Pope Francis as he navigates the emotional pain of losing his sister. While he has publicly displayed his strength and resilience, it is clear that Pope Francis has also sought solace in the love and care of his family members. Additionally, Pope Francis has found comfort in the many messages of support and sympathy from around the world. Countless Catholics, religious leaders, and even people from other faiths have reached out to offer their condolences and prayers during this difficult time. These expressions of solidarity have undoubtedly provided the Pope with a sense of warmth and connection to the global community. It is a reminder that the Pope's loss is not one he faces alone. He is supported by a vast network of people who deeply care for him and wish him strength as he copes with his grief. Pope Francis has also turned to his spiritual practices to help him through the pain. His daily routine includes prayer, reflection, and celebrating the Mass, all of which have allowed him to stay grounded during this time of emotional upheaval. The rituals of the Catholic faith, including the Eucharist and other sacraments, provide him with a sense of comfort and connection to the divine, helping him navigate the darkness of grief with the light of faith. Despite the sadness that has weighed heavily on his heart, Pope Francis has consistently remained focused on the greater mission of the Church. He has continued to fulfill his papal duties, meeting with leaders, giving sermons, and addressing important matters of faith and morality. However, it is clear that his personal grief has also influenced the way he approaches these duties. Pope Francis has become more reflective in his public speeches, often speaking about the fragility of life and the importance of love and family. His words, shaped by his personal experiences of loss, have resonated deeply with the faithful, reminding them that even in moments of sorrow, there is hope and a sense of purpose that comes from faith in God. At times, Pope Francis has also spoken about how his own grief has deepened his empathy for others who are experiencing loss. He has often expressed that, as the leader of the Catholic Church, he feels a responsibility to reach out to those who are suffering, whether it is from the loss of a loved one or from any other hardship. His own experience with loss has allowed him to understand more fully the pain that others are going through, and he has used this understanding to guide his pastoral work. In his efforts to cope with the loss of his sister, Pope Francis has drawn on his strong sense of humility, recognizing that grief is a universal experience